The New Orleans Saints have a problem nobody inside that building wants to say out loud, and it took 12 days of training camp to drag it into the open. On August 17th, NFL Network insiders Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo reported that rookie receiver Jordyn Tyson, the 8th overall pick in April's draft, will miss roughly 2 months with a hamstring injury he suffered during a joint practice against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Head coach Kellen Moore has confirmed the injury is new rather than a flare-up of an old one. What follows is the honest accounting of what that costs, what this roster still holds, and whether the season you have been circling since May is already gone. Start with the money, because the rest of this offseason went almost exactly to plan. General Manager Mickey Loomis gave Chris Olave a 4-year extension worth up to $132 million with $90 million guaranteed. He signed Travis Etienne Jr. to a 4-year contract worth $52 million. He handed David Edwards $61 million to fix left guard. Then he spent the 8th overall pick on a receiver and made one more decision in that same draft room that this franchise is going to be defending from now until January. The defense is the part nobody is arguing about. New Orleans finished 2025 ranked 9th in total defense and 4th against the pass in Brandon Staley's first season running it, and that unit got home for 45 sacks. It is why this team is still a live threat in a division decided last year by a tiebreaker. If you want the honest version of where the Saints actually stand rather than the panic version, subscribe now, because what comes next is the part nobody else is walking through. One receiver on this roster is about to get the opportunity of his career, and his name is not the one you would guess. The Saints finished 6-11 last season and landed 4th in the NFC South. That record is technically accurate and almost completely useless because it describes 2 different football teams wearing the same uniform. New Orleans opened the year 1-7 with Spencer Rattler starting. Then Kellen Moore made the switch in Week 9, put Shuck on the field against the Los Angeles Rams, and told reporters he was not looking back. From that point forward, the Saints went 5-4, including wins in 4 of their final 5 games. Shuck was the 44th overall pick out of Louisville in 2025, and his rookie season did not read like a project. He appeared in 11 games, made 9 starts, and completed 221 of 327 passes for 2,384 yards, with 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. His 67.6 completion percentage, his 91.3 passer rating, and his 216.7 passing yards per game all led every rookie quarterback in the league, and his 103.3 passer rating on 3rd down led the entire NFL. He finished 2nd in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting while playing half a season. Run the arithmetic on that and the picture changes shape. A 5-4 pace stretched across a full 17-game season projects to roughly 9 or 10 wins. The NFC South was won at 8-9 by the Carolina Panthers. Let me be fair here, projecting a 9-game sample across a full year is the oldest trick in sports analysis, and it quietly ignores schedule, health, and regression. But the distance between what the Saints were in September and what they were in December is not a rounding error. It is the entire premise of this season. Here is how it actually unfolded. Spencer Rattler started the first 8 games and the offense never found a floor. And by the time Moore pulled him during a 23-3 loss to Tampa Bay, Rattler sat at 1-13 as an NFL starter. Shuck relieved him that afternoon and started the following week in Los Angeles. New Orleans was 1-7 and functionally out of the race in early November, which is what makes everything that came after it so strange. The Saints closed the year by beating Tampa Bay 24-20, Carolina 20-17, the New York Jets 29-6, and Tennessee 34-26 on the road. Chris Olave and Shuck ran that final month together, with 148 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Jets and 119 yards and another score in Tennessee. Chase Young posted 1.5 sacks in Nashville, including a strip sack he returned 33 yards for a touchdown. New Orleans looked like the most dangerous team in its own division, roughly 4 weeks too late. Then came Week 18 in Atlanta. The Saints lost 19-17, and that single result handed the NFC South to Carolina on a 3-way tiebreaker because Atlanta, Carolina, and Tampa Bay all finished 8th and 9th. Carl Granderson intercepted Kirk Cousins in the red zone that afternoon for the first pick of his career and added 1.5 sacks. It was the best game of his life, and it changed nothing. New Orleans finished the year with 306 points scored and 383 points allowed and went home. The roster that finished that hot is not the roster reporting to camp. Demario Davis signed with the New York Jets. Taysom Hill is gone. Foster Moreau is gone. Alontae Taylor, who played the star position in Staley's scheme, is gone. Rashid Shaheed was traded to Seattle at midseason, and Seattle went on to win the championship. That is a lot of continuity to replace in one offseason, and almost none of it got replaced by players who have been in this building before. Then camp opened, and it got worse. On the very first practice, July 29th, defensive tackle Bryan Bresee tore his ACL on a non-contact rep. Nose tackle David Godchaux described it as a freak accident with hardly any contact involved. Bresee was the 29th overall pick in 2023. He started 15 games last season. He owns 14.5 career sacks, and New Orleans had just picked up his fifth-year option worth $13.9 million. He will miss the entire season. 4 days later, wide receiver Jalen Polk retired at 24 years old. He was not hurt, and he was not released. He had stood out through OTAs and minicamp, and then asked to be placed on the reserve retired list. Moore said Polk had been excused from the previous 2 practices for personal reasons. Nick Underhill of neworleans.football reported that Polk was healthy and comfortable with his role in New Orleans. All of that happened before the 8th overall pick pulled up in a joint practice. Now the additions, because this is where the plan shows itself. Travis Etienne Jr. signed on March 9th for 4 years and $52 million, close to $12 million per season. And he arrives at 27 years old to take carries from a 31-year-old Alvin Kamara, who restructured his contract in July to stay for a 10th season. David Edwards took over at left guard on a $61 million deal. Noah Fant joined Juwan Johnson, who caught 77 passes for 889 yards last season, in a tight end room that is now genuinely deep. The defense got rebuilt the same quiet way. Caden Ellis replaced Demario Davis at linebacker. Martin Emerson Jr. arrived from Cleveland as a boundary corner. Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon are the projected starting safeties. Anthony Jennings signed for edge depth, and New Orleans sent the 150th pick to Las Vegas for Tyree Wilson, the 7th overall selection in the 2023 draft. A player with 12 career sacks across 50 games who needs a new building to work in. That brings us back to the receiver. With Tyson out, Devon Vele slides into the number 2 role, the same job he held after Shaheed was traded, and he caught 25 passes for 293 yards last season. The name to watch is Bub Means, a 5th-round pick from 2024 who led New Orleans in receiving in the preseason opener with 4 catches for 77 yards. I am not going to pretend a 5th-round receiver replaces the 8th overall pick. He does not have to. He has to be the 4th option on a team whose quarterback just went 8 for 8 targeting Chris Olave against Dallas. The 2026 draft class was built on one idea. New Orleans took 3 wide receivers in a single class for the first time since 1989, starting with Jordyn Tyson at pick 8 out of Arizona State. Then Bryce Lance from North Dakota State at pick 136, then Barion Brown out of LSU at pick 190. Lance stands 6'3" and ran the 40-yard dash in 4.34 seconds at the combine. Brown handled punt returns in the Cowboys joint practice and caught 4 passes for 53 yards in the preseason opener. The rest of the class went to the trenches and the secondary. Georgia defensive tackle Kristen Miller came off the board at pick 42, and he is now being asked to help cover for Bresee. Georgia tight end Oscar Delp went at pick 73 and caught the only touchdown pass of the preseason opener. Auburn guard Jeremiah Wright followed at pick 132. Ohio State safety Lorenzo Styles Jr. at pick 172, and Iowa cornerback TJ Hall at pick 219 using the selection that came back from Las Vegas in the Tyree Wilson trade. The best player in this class might not have been drafted at all. Undrafted edge rusher Michael Heldman out of Central Michigan started the preseason opener and finished with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, and 6 total tackles. He put up 10.5 sacks in his final college season and posted a 9.88 relative athletic score, and he still went unselected across all 7 rounds. Heldman said afterward that the joint practice had not been his best day, and he simply kept hunting. That is the kind of camp story that rewrites a 53-man roster. Here's the decision New Orleans will be defending all season. Everyone knew. Tyson missed 34% of Arizona State's games across his final 4 college years. He played 9 games in 2025 and still produced 61 catches for 711 yards and 8 touchdowns. His 2024 season ended with a broken collarbone. He skipped the combine and his pro day, held a private workout in April instead, and the Saints were among more than half the league in attendance for it. One AFC scouting director told Yahoo Sports that Tyson was among the most debated prospects on their entire board. Weighed alongside Alabama tackle Caden Proctor and Florida defensive tackle Caleb Banks. The question was whether the injuries were always going to chase him. Kellen Moore insists this hamstring is unrelated to the old ones, saying it has nothing to do with Jordyn's history, and noting that any player whose foot slips and takes a shove from behind ends up with the same diagnosis. He is very likely right, and it changes nothing about the calendar. That is the real indictment, and it was never about one rookie. Eric McCoy is one of the better centers in football, and injuries have held him to 7 games in each of the last 2 seasons. Chris Olave has 4 known concussions on his record and missed a Week 18 game last season with a blood clot in his lung. Brees is out for the year. Tyson is out until October. The ceiling on this roster was never talent. It has been availability for 3 straight seasons, and New Orleans keeps drafting and paying like it believes otherwise. So where does that leave the schedule? New Orleans holds the 2nd easiest slate in the NFL by 2025 opponent record, and it still opens at Detroit on September 13th and at Baltimore the week after that. Atlanta visits the Superdome on Monday night in Week 4. The Saints host Pittsburgh in Paris in Week 7, the first NFL game ever played in France, and then take their bye. On Tuesday in Oxnard, this team got into 6 separate fights with the Cowboys, and Tyler Shuck said afterward that, "We were competing the whole time." Here's what I actually think. Back in May, DraftKings listed the New Orleans win total at 7.5 games, and ESPN's Mike Clay projected 7.2 wins. And both of those numbers were built before anyone knew about the hamstring. The NFC South was won at 8-9 last season. Every team in it finished 3-3 in division play, and it was the only division in football where all 4 teams won at least 6 games. That is not a division anybody is running away with. So here is my claim, and you are welcome to argue with it below. The Saints win the NFC South this season, and they do it without their first-round pick for the opening month. That is the bet, and I will wear it if it misses. If you want the film breakdown on Bub Means and Michael Heldman before this roster gets cut to 53, it is coming, and subscribing is the only way it reaches you. Tell me the record you have got them at.